Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're going to go from this to this. And we're going to do this by building a vintage console, basically, in Luna. And first off though, I want to thank Warren Huart from Produce Like a Pro for allowing people to grab these tracks and do their own kind of thing with them. These were all recorded with a cloud ribbon microphone, whether it was the active or the passive, which is the new one, and they sound great. But as you can tell, the ribbon mics, when they're recorded, they're kind of dull. They don't have a lot of top end, and that's actually a really good thing for Mojo. So thank you, Warren, and let's dive in here and see what we have going on. Okay, so we have a pretty simple layout here. So what I'm going to do first is kind of walk through the routing. When I pulled in the tracks from Warren's session, I have basically two drums, one kind of in front of the kick drum and one over the top of the drum set, and they sound like this. Now I have routed both of those tracks to a drum sub, which is monoed. We also have two bass. We have a bass DI and a bass amp. I'm not sure what amp Warren was using, but it sounds good. And both of those together sound like this. Here's the DI. And here's the amp. Cool. And we have a couple of guitar parts here, an acoustic guitar and two guitar parts. I will come to this little section here in a minute. And next up, I threw in a piano and I threw in a tambourine part, which are super simple. You can just throw those in about 5 seconds. And here are the horn parts, bari sax, tenor sax, two trumpets, and then a lead vocal. Pretty simple. Now I have some effects on some sends and returns, and we'll get to those in a minute. First of all, we're going to take all of the regular tracks, and I'm going to turn on the Universal Audio UA610A. And let's listen to those now with just that console on each one. I mean, you're 95% there already. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The 610A is the first version of this console. Let's go through what I'm doing. On a lot of these, I'm just boosting the high frequencies and maybe sometimes some low end and maybe sometimes some drive. That's really the only three options you get, which makes this super fast and super simple. Okay, so let's take a look at this one first. And what I'm going to do is solo this up right fast. But this is the microphone that's kind of in front of the kick drum. Now this is a pretty simple channel strip, right? We have a low frequency is around 100 Hertz and the high frequency is at 10K. That's it. And we can get some real nice saturation by using the level in and then compensating on the output out. But this is just the default setting right here. I just stuck it on, pulled up the high frequencies. I think I did the same thing on the other mic. Here we go. Right. Now on this one, I'm bringing up the high frequencies a little more because this is actually sitting over top of the drum kit. And if I put those together, okay, here they are, off, on. Now, just like on an old vintage kind of console situation, we're going to sum this down into one channel. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to turn this summing on right fast. This is an old Neve summing unit, 1272 line amp. This is late 60s technology. And the first thing I'm going to hit with it is a Pultec HLF3C. This is just a simple EQ that has a low cut and a high cut. So I'm cutting off at 50 Hertz on the bottom. Here we go. I'll turn that on and off. Just tightens up the low end a little bit. Now I'm going to bring in the regular Pultec. Now what I'm doing is kind of subtle, even though the knobs are moving a lot. have it set around 30 cycles per second, which is 30 hertz, boosting and cutting at the same level. And if you're familiar with the Pultec, you'll know what that's doing. It sort of boosts in the low end, makes a little resonant bump down, cuts out some mud, and comes back up a little bit. It's a really cool little Pultec thing that happens. As far as I know, it wasn't designed with that in mind, but it's super helpful. I'm boosting around 8K, and that is it. Give it a little mojo, right? Now I'm pulling this down a little bit because Pultecs have a tendency of raising the volume, and UA, modeling their circuits, they do the same thing. So there's a little trick right there. Use this little dial right here. You can pull it down if you want to level match it. Now for compression on here, I'm going to stick with the old stuff, right? Here's the 176, sort of the precursor to the 1176. We turn it on, I'll bring it in, and we'll listen to what's going on. Yeah, I know I raised the level a little bit, but that's just part of what's going on in the mix. But what I'm doing here is not weird at all. Sort of a slow attack on one of these types of compressors, almost the fastest release, and that's it. You have a low and a high input. Basically, on this compressor, you don't really have a choice of 2-to-1, 4-to-1, 8-to-1, etc. It's kind of in the circuitry as to how hard you hit it. So again, here it is without. A lot of the tone that we're getting is going to come from the combination of the UA610 and the 176 compressors that we're using here. Now, at the end of this, I thought, well, let's send this to the tape machine. And so we've got the Kramer tape here. This is an old tube Ampex tape machine emulation from Waves, and it's pretty cool. I know I've used it forever, but you kind of have to dig into it sometimes to get what you want out of it. I'll leave it off for a second and then bring it in. Now what I'm hearing there is it's rounding off some of the transients that were kind of poking through, and that's exactly what I want. I want it to soften up a little bit what's happening. It's sort of a byproduct of how this machine was designed. It's running through tubes, it's hitting tape, and it's hitting tape pretty hard. Here it is again, off and then on. Cool. All right, so now we have the drum parts together. Let's take a listen to the bass. On the bass, DI, I'm going to bring up the console. I'll take it out and then in. Super simple, right? It's very cool. I'm raising some of the high frequency a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing on the bass amp. However, on the bass amp, I'm going to drive it a good bit. That's getting some more character to it. And we're going to send that also through a summing line amp to another high pass, low cut on a Pultec. That little low cut is just tightening up the low end. It's making it more focused, and that's the point of it. Now we're going to go through the regular Pultec. Right, that is doing a little bit of boost at 60 hertz, just above where the drums are, and I'm boosting a little bit at 4K just because it sounded good right there. Next, I'm going to send these through the tried and trusted LA2A for a bass. Both tracks going through here, they sound like this. Now that's not doing a whole lot. I'm not smashing this. I don't want it to be smashed and annihilated. I do want to hear the attack of the notes though. And again, I'm going to send that to the Kramer tape This is the default setting again. I'll leave it off and then bring it back on. Yeah, it's giving a little bit of growl. That's what I like. Now, both of those together, drums and bass. Sweet. Okay, now on the mix bus, let's head over here right now. I'm going to go ahead and start working with some of this. I'm going to turn on the summing line amp here. And first thing on the mix bus, another low cut filter from the Pultec. Let's listen to that right fast. Cannot be overstated how awesome that is when you put that on there and it focuses up the low end. You could go higher on there, but I think that was a good place to be. Now on the mix bus, I'm using the Fairchild. Let's listen to this. This is on the fastest time constant. That's given a lot of harmonics, a little bit of compression, not much, and it's smoothing out sort of the high end a good bit too. We'll come back to that in a little bit. And after that, I have a full Pultec, which is not doing much at all except boosting with the broad bandwidth, the air frequencies, which are kind of missing a lot in this recording, which is totally normal because this is a ribbon microphone recording. And I'm boosting the crap out of those basically, and then attenuating some of the high frequency shelf. Now this whole end over here kind of works like the low end on a Pultec, if you're familiar with those. The last thing I have on here is the tape machine that it would be printed to, and I believe this is just, again, the default setting. I pulled down the recording level a little bit and sounds like this. Cool, that will actually be an accumulated effect as we go. Let's head back to the guitars right fast. On the acoustic guitar, pulling up the console, I have raised the high frequency. I've raised the level into it a little bit to get some more harmonics on it, and I pulled down the output to compensate. It sounds like this. Next up is a simple low cut from the Pultec filter. It's kind of important though, because that low end on that acoustic will kind of fight the bass and the drums. All right, and a tape machine. Awesome. Now let's look at the electrics. Now this is the one part where I kind of did some editing on Warren's stuff, and I hope he's okay with it. It's real simple, and we'll get into it here in a second. But on both of these tracks, the 610 console, I have used a good bit of boost on one on the high frequency, and just a medium amount on the other, and pulled down the low end on that one. And the reason I'm doing that is so they blend together a little bit. On the guitar amp 1, it's sort of he's playing a sort of different rhythm, so these kind of bounce off each other a little bit. Here it is without, and then I'll pull it in. Let's bring in the other. I will take the console off right fast. Right now on this one, on the recording, it's got a good bit of low end, so I have pulled down the low frequency. This is 100 hertz again, -6, and then I drive into the console a little bit to get more saturation. Those together sound like this. And they are feeding a bus, which I will turn on the summing to. Again, we're doing a low cut on the bus with the Pultec. I'm going to feed that into a standard Pultec where I'm boosting a bit of the high end and also attenuating. Let's listen to what this is doing. Here's off first. Okay, so it may seem weird what's going on here, but what I'm doing is pretty simple. I'm boosting the high frequencies with this is sort of a bell curve right here, with a broad bell. I'm boosting a little bit at 10K, but then I'm attenuating down to 10K on the top. That seems like counterintuitive, but the effect of that is to raise the high end and some of that air band kind of stuff for a guitar anyway. And then taking out super harsh high ends to get, you know, out of the way of other things, especially like vocals and effects like that. Here it is again, in or out first and then back in. Cool, let's listen to that with the bass and the drums. Already get some groove happening, right? Okay, now I put in a piano on this, but it was super simple and it's not necessary, so I'm not even really gonna go through that. It's just got a low pass and a little bit of compression on it. Now on these horns, let's take a look at what's going on. On the console, the Barry sax, I'm boosting the lows, boosting the highs a little bit. Okay, here it is without and then in. Same idea with the tenor saxophone. And on the trumpets, I'm panning these apart from each other, not very far, but you know, just to make the stereo image kind of fit better. Looks like on this one I'm not doing anything. It's just straight up through, getting some of the old mojo from the 610. Both of those will sound like this. Now on the bus these are going through, I am doing a bit of EQ. Again, there's a standard low cut, just straight off the top. Turn that on. And then the regular Pultec, boosting a little, cutting a little on the lows, boosting a little on 5K, and that's really it. I wouldn't even consider this much at all. And that sounds like this. I'll take it out and then bring it in. Yeah, cool. Just giving it some atmosphere. And now the real MVP, the 176. On this, I am setting it a 4:1 ratio. I'm going to slow attack for this compressor, kind of a fast release, and let's listen to it without, and then I'll bring it in. It's not doing a whole lot if you're just watching the needle move and gain reduction, but boy, that mojo it's giving you. Fantastic. And of course, we're going to a tape machine. That's distorting a little bit, and I like it. That's what they do. You know, that's what the old tube machines will do when you push them a little bit farther than they would normally go. Now, horn section, guitars, bass, and drums. You hear that room come up with the compression on everything, which is awesome. I am going to use a chamber and a plate reverb in a minute, and I will get there in just a second, but for now, that sounds fantastic. Let's take a look right fast at the vocal. Vocals are great, by the way, and they sound like this.
I need love, love. to ease my mind. I need to find time.
Now, if I take the console off, here, this is what the original vocal would sound like.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time. Someone to call my mama, say you.
It's so good. I love a vocal through a ribbon mic. It's really rich sounding, and I think this is a good complement to it with the UA610. Now, I'm pulling down some low frequencies. There seems to be a bit of a muffledness in the probably 300 to 700 range, which we'll get to in a minute. But this is around 100 right here. So I'm pulling that down as far as it'll go on the console, and then I'm boosting the high frequencies at 10K. And that would sort of be like an air band in this kind of situation. So here it is without again, and then I'll pull it in.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time. Someone to call my mama, say you can't hurry, love.
All right, next up is, guess what? Yes, it's a low cut filter around 150.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time. Someone to call my mama, say you.
All right, next up is the 176 compressor. This one I'm hitting it kind of fast for this compressor, a fast release. We're looking to grab peaks at 4 to 1. I'm going to turn that off, and then we'll bring it in. Sounds like this.
I need love. I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time. Someone to call my mama, say you can.
Fantastic. Now, after that, I'm going to follow that with an LA2A to sort of smooth out the parts where the 176 is kind of cutting out, which I want it to, but I want this compressor to sort of even out the other parts. I'll bring up the other one. You can kind of watch what's going on. So the top one is hitting the fast peaks, and the bottom one is smoothing things out a bit. I'll bring that in just a second.
I need love to ease my mind. I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time. Someone to call my mama, say you.
And now we have a Pultec. Sweet. We're going to take out some of the low end here on the 60 hertz. I'm going to boost around 12 here for some of the air back in, and then I'm going to cut down to about 10, and that sounds like this.
I need love to ease my mind. I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time.
Right, now the combination of these two things here are super important, I think, with a Pultec. A lot of folks that I run into will not use this whole section up here, and to me it's just vital, especially on something like this, something with a lot of vibe. You can boost and attenuate at the top end, and it is super helpful. Now, also, because of that mid kind of frequency, I'm going to grab the other Pultec. So now we have all three models of the Pultec used on this vocal. All I'm doing is dipping around 500. Now, if I take that out, I'll bring it in, and I think you'll hear the difference.
I need love to ease my mind. I need love to ease my mind.
Also looks like I'm doing a boost at 1.5 as a peak here as well. That's probably to push it through the mix a little more. Again, this is without first and then back in.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time.
And following that, I did have to put in a de-esser because we're boosting a lot of highs, and that has an effect. I'm going to head back here real fast to the electric guitars because I did not turn on the compressor. Here we go on the electric guitars. Right, the effect that this is giving me is bringing some of those transients forward and evening out the rest of it. And then, of course, we send it to a tape. Okay, now let's listen to everything together.
How many heartaches must I stand before I find the love?
So let's pull in a chamber and a reverb. Now, normally when I'm mixing, I throw these on kind of early, but I just wanted to walk through the mix so far to where we are. And let's pull in the chamber first. And I'm pretty sure just about everything in this mix is going to go to that chamber. Usually I'm sending it off of the bus. You know, see the drum sub here, the drum sub? I'm sending a chamber on the bass, sending it to the chamber. I sent the acoustic guitar because that's actually not going to any sub. It's just going to the mix bus. Guitars, horns, vocals, everything's going to this. I think this is the default room, and I switched over to the ribbon microphone because I thought it'd be fun. And that's really it. Pulled down some of the low end and the reverb. Sounds like this.
How many heartaches must I stand before I find the love to let me live again? Right now, the only thing that keeps me.
Then I put a Pultec reverb right after it, EQing up some of the high end at 10K and attenuating at the same time. That sounds like this.
How many heartaches must I stand before I find the love to let me live again? Right now, the only thing.
The only other reverb I have here is the plate reverb, the EMT 140. It's set just pretty standard, almost a 2-second tail, cutting out the low end, and that's it. There's no EQ or anything on there, although I am running an EQ after it where I'm cutting out the lows up to about 150, and I'm cutting out the highs down to around 5K, and that sounds like this.
How many heartaches must I stand before I find the love to let me live again? Right now, the only thing that keeps me hanging on.
Okay, let me go back to the beginning a bit, because now I want to talk about this little part where I took out one of Warren's guitar parts only because it felt like it needed more space, and it sounds like this now.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time, someone to call my mama. Say you can't hurry, love. No, you just have to wait. She said,
Cool, and he stays in for the rest of it. Now, let's take a look at what's going on with the compressor on the bus, on the stereo bus.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time, someone to call my mama. Say you can't hurry, love. No.
All right, so now on the vocals, I'm gonna go back to that, and I'm gonna bring in a delay, a tape delay here, and I've set this up around 134. That seems oddly specific, but I'm pretty sure if you do some math, I hate math, but if you do some math, this is about 15 ips of a slap. And now I will let that play on the vocals.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time, someone to call my.
Okay, I'll turn off the chamber and the plate, and you'll just hear the vocal with the slap.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time, someone to call my mama. Say you can't hurry, love. No, you just have to wait.
And back with the reverb and everything.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time.
And speaking of delay, let's take a listen to the guitar. I'm pretty sure, I would put money on it that there's a delay on this recording from Warren. However, listening to the guitar, I felt like it needed more delay. So what I did was just put more delay on it. It sounds like this. This is just what we had before, boost in the high end, And then I'm going to bring in the tape delay. Now I'm using that same setting as before because just like in the old days when we would have used the tape machine, this would have been the speed of the delay that we had, and it would have synced up exactly with the vocals. And I think that's important to get the mojo of this recording. Now it sounds like this.
I need love to ease my mind. I need to find time, someone to call my mama, say you can't hurry love. No, you just have to wait. She said love don't come easy.
All right, now the tambourine. I hate tambourines, but there was a tambourine in the recording, and so on here, this is a stereo recorded tambourine. It's pretty bright, and that's because this was the only thing here not recorded with a ribbon microphone. It's super bright. There are two mics here. There's a KSM 32 Shure and a I think it was just a 57 kind of farther away. But now the first thing I'm doing with the UA610 is, for some reason, I'm giving it more high frequencies. Let's listen to this in the mix, and I think it might make more sense. Well, it's pretty bright, so let's see what happens later. This is an 8-to-1 compressor, and that's a pretty heavy compression ratio on this. But what I'm trying to do with this fast attack and fast release is I'm trying to push this back farther into the mix, the stereo image. Again, that 176 is like the MVP here. We're gonna put it through the tape machine, and I'm gonna push it pretty hard. The reason I'm pushing it that hard is I want some of the distortion that comes with it, and I want it to bring down some of the high end from the recording. One of the cool things about these old machines, if you've ever worked with one of my favorite things to do is to push the signal hard into one if the signal's too bright at first. There's a very odd thing that happens with an old tube machine, especially. The more signal you push into it, the reaction is that it pushes back by distorting, number one, and number two, giving you a darker signal by just completely annihilating the high end. Yeah, cool. And I'm sending that to the chamber and the EMT, but that wasn't enough, so I put the pure plate on there, and now we're sending through a plate and then through the chamber to another plate. Yeah, man, cool. And then we have a Pultec where I'm boosting around 3K, and then I'm attenuating a lot at the top end.
Now love don't come easy, but I keep waiting, anticipating for that soft voice to talk to me at night, for some tender arms to hold me. It's so tight, I keep waiting for that day. It ain't easy, oh no, it ain't easy. My lover say you can't hurry love, no, you just have to wait. She said love don't come easy, it's a game of give and take. You can't hurry love, no, you just have to wait. She said love don't come easy, it's a game of give and take.
All right, that was super fun. I want to thank Warren Huart again for letting us use these tracks to do this old style mix. And as always, I hope he is having a marvelous day. And thanks everyone for watching. If this was interesting or helpful in any way, please hit like, please hit subscribe, leave me some comments, questions. I will answer anything. We will go through anything you want to talk about. Thanks again, and we'll see you very soon.